Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with News Sources. Now, we want to go live to our city center studios and join Dismas Ongondi, who is a former ICT director with the IBC, just to attempt to understand what that move today by the cancellation of that tender to acquire that integrated election system, what it means in terms of our preparedness for the August 8th polls. And a very good evening to you, Mr. Ongondi. Many thanks for joining us tonight. So let's just start with having Kenyans understand, what does this mean, the cancellation of this integrated system? What exactly would that mean in terms of, how then does it mean we are planning to do the elections even?
Thank you for having me this evening. A little bit of background to what has happened is that the requirement for the Kenya Integrated Elections Management System was brought about by the amendments to the Elections Act, specifically Section 44 last year in 2016, which rather than as was provided in 2010, the Elections Act 2011, the Commission was permitted to deploy technology as it deemed appropriate. In 2016, Parliament amended the law to require or to mandate the Commission to actually adopt an integrated technology for the management of elections, focusing mainly on the registration of voters, transmission of results, and the verification of voters on election day. Now, in terminating the tender for the procurement of the Kenya Integrated Elections Management System, the Commission cited two factors: that of budgetary constraints, which may not be a problem because, after all, Parliament could sit and ask Treasury to provide additional funding. But the key factor in the circumstances is that of time. And given that we have only 4 months to the election on the 8th of August, there is very little room for the Commission to actually procure a new piece of technology, test it, configure it, and deploy it for those elections successfully. I'm not predicting doom. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is that you can still go ahead and procure this technology. Mm-hmm. It might work, but it's a question of might. Mm-hmm. It's more of hoping that it works than planning to ensure that it works. Mm-hmm. Clearly, in these circumstances, I think the Commission has very limited options. And I think the sooner the election managers come out to tell the country boldly and honestly that they have run out of time to procure this technology, the better. Mm-hmm. But it is very important that the Commission manages unrealistic stakeholder expectations. And right now, there's a lot of pressure from the political class to integrate technology into the electoral process, the kind of technology that the Commission is looking for, perfect technology, but the timing is obviously wrong. The Commission has no time on its hands. Okay. Therefore, what then ought to be done in these circumstances? Having cancelled the procurement process or terminated the procurement process, I guess the Commission, and I don't speak for them, I guess that they are actually looking at options of possibly a direct procurement or single sourcing from one of the vendors, and I have no confirmation to this, but it's a possibility. But even for that, in my view, I think they have run out of time. Secondly, even a single source process, direct procurement for this technology could still be challenged in court or at the Public Procurement Review Administrative Review Board, and that would introduce other dynamics into the process that the Commission would have to carefully and delicately navigate. I have heard suggestions from a section of the political class to lease this sort of technology from sister election management bodies or from vendors. The question is, that is easier to say than do, because we do not know yet of any country in Africa, say, of comparable demographics and electoral system to us that has deployed this kind of technology, from the registration of voters to the verification of all voters and the transmission of results. What has happened is that countries have integrated aspects of this functionality into the electoral process, but none is yet to do everything using one device to register voters, verify them, and transmit results. Of course, the current EVID system that has been in use in the Commission since the year 2013 was initially intended through the specifications to provide this functionality, but it didn't happen because of delays. And given where we are, it actually just confirms that as a country, we don't seem to have learned a lot or March from the conduct of the 2013 general elections.
Right. Mr. Ongondi, if I can just interrupt
the other option
just
that the Commission may realistically
Mr. Ongondi, this is Julie Masiga
consider is that of alternative technology, which might be not as sophisticated as the current one that they were looking for, that gives basic functionality. The fact is, today the Commission has concluded mass voter registration. There isn't going to be another registration
Mr. Ongondi, if I can just interrupt you for a second there. This is Julie Masiga from the studio. A quick question about, in your considered opinion as an ICT expert and having worked for the IEB's Electoral Commission before, in your opinion, is it really possible for us to have this election on August 8th? Are we seeing a situation where the stage is being set for postponement?
Right. Just a clarification, yes, I worked at the IEBC, but I've also worked in other countries, including Zambia and Ghana on elections. Now, back to your question. The process of rescheduling the date of this election is some form of an election because it requires a referendum according to the Constitution. And even with that, you require a credible register. They will require to verify the identity of voters coming to polling stations. They will still require to transmit those results. So the question of postponing this election is almost out of the question. We must go to these elections, come rain, come sunshine, but we also need to go back to the basics. If you look at Article 38, sub-Article 3 of the Constitution 2010, the right to vote is guaranteed to Kenyans of 18 years and above without unreasonable restrictions. That's what the Constitution says. The provision on voter registration, which I think is provided in the Constitution also, Article 83, sub-Article 3, it talks about the simplicity of administrative procedures. And generally, experts argue that administrative procedures must not restrict that right to vote.
Right, Mr. Ongondi,
and one could
actually just interject there again.
That the use of technology...
Mr. Ongondi, brief interruption, if I may just interject again. If you're saying we have to go to this election, come hell or high water, are we then talking about a contested election? Because as we can see, perceptions on IEBC, leave alone the actual state of affairs, are that it's not prepared to conduct a free, fair, and credible election. So what do we do then come August 8th? Are we contemplating another Supreme Court situation, or what's our end game with this?
Well, my view is that the election managers, and specifically the IEBC, should come out boldly and tell the country honestly that they have run out of time to procure this technology. But that is not to say that the election cannot go on, because you can still have a credible process even in the absence of that technology, because technology alone will not give you a total solution to all of our election problems. Secondly, is the fact that the Commission needs to come out and effectively manage unrealistic or unreasonable stakeholder expectations. For example, the country expects that they will actually deploy very sophisticated technology in this election. The truth is they have no time. And I think that's why I'm saying the Commission should come out boldly and tell the country would have wished to do this. We have unfortunately run out of time, and the legal timelines do not permit us to do that. Well, you can still have the best of technologies and they can still contest elections. So, the problem in this country is that the level of mistrust is extremely high, and that needs to be managed, and it's dangerous.
Okay, Mr. Ongondi, this is Faith Rono. I know you have experience in this field, yes. And having listened to you, are you suggesting that we probably go to the elections and go manual? Is that your suggestion to the Commission?
I didn't quite say that. All I said is that if we cannot procure the so-called Kenya Integrated Election Management System, which was supposed to roll 3 functionalities into one device, registration, verification of voters, and transmission of results, can we then adopt an alternative piece of technology which is cheaper, quicker to learn, to procure, and deploy, that provides basic functionality? And what are the functionalities that we're looking at this point in time? It's not registration of voters, because the next phase this will be triggered is at the next review of delimitation of boundaries. So for the purpose of this election, we're actually looking at, can we verify the identity of the voters that turn up on polling day? What sort of system or mechanism can we put in place? Secondly, how do we relay the results? And that is what the Commission should be focusing on: verification of voters and the transmission of results, besides the nomination of candidates. Now, if they cannot procure alternative technology, then they have to look at whether they can actually reuse what has been in place since 2013. And as far as I'm concerned, that technology still operates. It's been used in several by-elections. The problem might be with an increase in the number of polling stations. They may not have an adequate number. And secondly, most of the batteries for those devices may be dead. They may need to procure that. But again, even that one is a question of, can they quickly make that decision? They cannot afford to wait anymore.
Right, Mr. Dismas Ongondi, former ICT Director at the IEBC, thank you so much for joining us today. We value your considered opinion, but earlier on today, before we close, we asked you, do you think it's time that Kenyans accepted the possibility of a manual election? To read some of your responses, Frank Orinde says that a manual register is a recipe for fraud and manipulated elections. Kamau Mwaniki says that after forcing through electoral amendments, Kenyans should prepare to accommodate ghost voters. And the results from that Twitter poll are that 39% of you say no, I believe it was, Sharon?
Yes, 39% of you say yes, it's about time Kenyans can actually start warming up to that idea of a manual election, and 61% of you say no, this is not a route we want to take. Very considered number there that is actually warming up to the idea of manual election. Many thanks for your views and for watching us tonight. An hour goes really fast, so many thanks. I also want to thank our guests tonight. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights on these issues. And that's where we wrap it up tonight for News Source's Ladies' Night edition. My name is Sharon Momanyi. Do have a good night till we see you again next week.